Hello, my name is Charity. I have started a page, Murdered by Knife. This is after a personal experience. I lost my brother in 2020 to knife crime. So I come from a family of four girls, and Panache, who lost his life, was the only boy in our family. So it came as a huge shock. So you hear about knife crime every day, that it's happening, but we never actually imagined that this will actually happen to us. So I've started this page to kind of raise our awareness about knife crime and also help other families who are kind of going through the same thing that we're going through. I understand sometimes you just need a peer buddy, somebody who's going through the same experiences as you, to talk to and to just share experiences, really. So what happened was Panache turned 21 on June the 21st, and he was murdered. They are two people in remand, in custody at the minute, who are being accused of this crime. So obviously, because he hasn't been taken to trial yet, everybody's being treated as innocent until proven guilty. So they've got two suspects in custody at the minute. One of the suspects, so he was in a hotel, so we don't even know much as yet because it hasn't gone through to a trial. But he was in a hotel, he was staying in a hotel, and there were two boys who were arrested after his murder. So what happened, from what we know, we're not even sure whether it actually happened in his hotel room or on the corridor, but somebody stabbed him. It was one stab wound to the chest. It was a fatal stab wound, and I think it happened about 7:20, and he was declared dead at about 8:20. So it was just police officers came to the house. My sister was alone, broke the news to my sister, and because all our family were kind of spread out in the country, my other family live in Norwich, I live in Stevenage, we all had to be contacted by phone. So we are still trying to piece together what actually happened, which we will not know till trial, and I think we've got a provisional date for trial, which is in August. One of the boys was on the run for a very long time. Well, not a very long time. It was from July. He didn't hand himself over till November. So instead of dealing with our grief, we kind of were doing campaigns to make sure that this guy got caught. So eventually he did hand himself in, and he is now on remand. And yeah. We have absolutely no idea. So this is just from my own knowledge. And obviously from talking to my brother's friends, obviously we will not know till we get to trial, and I can't vouch 100%. But my brother, from what I know, he was not involved in drugs and he was not in a gang. So growing up, I was raised in Birmingham, and I could get on the bus and go to school and then get on the bus and come back home. I had no worries that anybody would be carrying a knife. Yes, fights did break out, but they didn't end in murder, or anyone pulling out a knife, and or gun crime wasn't such a thing. But now, just knowing that young children are now walking and moving around with a knife in their backpacks, in their pockets, it's such a strange thing. And me myself, I'm not comfortable going out anymore, like, because I'm not sure if I could be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've got two young boys that I'm trying to raise, and you're not even sure which is the right way to raise them. Am I going to stop them from having a social life? And obviously, because of my own personal experience, is this going to actually affect how I'm going to raise them? Am I going to be overprotective over them? Am I going to let them go to cinemas with their friends? I was let out, and I used to go cinemas with my friends, but that was okay then. But now I could let my sons go out to cinemas with their friends, but I'm not sure if they're going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. I'm not sure if they're going to be influenced to carrying this knife, or if somebody's going to tell them this is the right way, or they're going to, you just don't know at the minute. It's just such a limbo, and it's so confusing. So yeah, so I work in custody, so I get the privilege of talking to young people who do come into custody, and it's actually like amazing. Like sometimes you ask them, "Oh, do you take drugs?" and they'll be like, "No," and you have to ask, "Oh, do you take cannabis?" and they're like, "Oh yeah." And sometimes they're so young, they're really young children, and it's no longer like your organic symptoms anymore. Like it's now more like drug-induced psychosis that is just coming onto play, and it's such a young age, and people are now having diagnosis for such a young age, and behavior is coming into play as well. People are no longer listening to their parents, and it's so disheartening what is happening at the minute. I think the best thing at the minute is education, education, education. So it's not only educating the young children, it's also educating the parents. So you never and actually seeing how victims are actually like affected by this. It's the same as like fair trade. You wouldn't we were told only buy fair trade things. The only reason why we do that is because we know how it's affecting how other people are being paid 2 pence for something for hard work. So I think spreading the word of how victims, how families like my family are being affected, and how like literally your life is turned upside down. If you can reach to the human that is carrying that knife and tell them and cry out to them and tell them like, this is what's happened to me, this is the pain that we've been through. It's not just pain, it's emotionally draining, it's financially draining. I mean, we had to come up with £15,000 from nowhere to bury my beloved brother. Not to say it was painful, but it was like an unexpected expense. So it's not something that we had, like, he was only 20 years old, just turned 20. So it's not like we had funeral money set out aside for him. So it's not just that. My parents now, they have no son. They have like literally, he was the baby of the home. He was that son that you've always wanted. And not to say that they don't love us, but literally that's what they have taken away from us. So just spreading the word of how it's going to affect victims, how it's affecting even the families of the perpetrators as well. They've lost a son. Like these sons could end up spending their life in prison. So now they don't have that son. They don't have that son to hug every day. They've got that person now that's been labeled a murderer. So think about your own families as well. So if we can spread the word, and what can be done is just educating parents that tell your children the importance of education, the importance of doing things right, how it affects your future. Because having a little thing on your criminal record could affect what job you're going to get. Personally, as a nurse, I know I have to have a clean DBS for me to stay in my career. So it's just educating them about how it could potentially just ruin your whole future just because of a mistake that you did when you're 14 years old. I feel like no, not enough is being done. Like I don't feel like they're doing county lines education, like educating, because children don't, because I've done county lines, gangs and county lines training. And you see how children kind of lured into this, and you think maybe if they learn this thing, like if somebody's going to buy you fish and chips at a bus stop, doesn't mean that you owe them anything. You don't actually have to accept it either. So it's teaching children like simple things like that, because you find children, somebody buys them trainers and says, oh, now you owe me, now you have to sell these drugs for me. And this is like a 10-year-old sometimes. And then this is how they get like involved in gang crime. And if you're going to be like selling drugs, you need to protect yourself. You're probably going to need a knife. And this is how this whole thing is starting. And probably like parents being vigilant, like looking out for changes in behaviors of their children. It's the minor things. Spending time with children. I think there's been studies that just spending 10 minutes of the day with your child, you can actually spot if there's a change in your child's behavior. And if need be, if you need to take your child to school every day and drop, I can appreciate that people work, but obviously like if it's like a household where there's two parents, I can appreciate that there's single parents who can't probably manage that. And probably like the government doing more as well, like school buses. When I grew up, there were school buses. So I knew that I'll get in a school bus from school, and then I'll get dropped at a certain point, and I'll just probably have to just get another bus to go home. But now children, there's no school buses anymore, obviously because of funding being cut in every way, and just being taught principles in school. Because now I see, like, because there's a lot of things coming to play as well, and a lot of changes, like you can't even teach children just basic principles anymore, because a lot of people want to, I can appreciate, like, there are differences in families, we're all diverse, but now just like certain like simple little things about aggression, about, I think if these things could be taught in school, I think it would be so beneficial to our society as a whole. I feel like with what's happening at the minute, people don't respect their parents anymore. And usually parents then used to go and tell teachers, and people now don't children don't respect teachers anymore. They don't even respect authorities. They don't respect police. Like, you can get arrested and you find a child screaming and shouting, swearing at police officers. Growing up, I would have never, ever dared talk rude or just have a rude talk to police officers. And now you find even young children, like even just like our pride, like before, say growing up, we had Tony Blair when we were growing up, but I wouldn't have gone on social medias and said like a lot of bad things about the people that were in power at that time. I know like now I probably do on social media, but now it's become so normalized and no one kind of respects anyone anymore. The freedom of speech is just like everywhere. And now for me to say, oh, this prime minister is like this, this and that, and then try and teach my child to respect authorities, which would be like the police, it's become really difficult, because my child could probably turn around and say, well, mommy, you were saying this about the prime minister, so why should I have any respect for the police? Yeah, and I also think like social media is coming into play a lot. Like, I think we are now led by social media, and obviously the pandemic hasn't helped. We now rely on social media, because sometimes even if I want current news, I have to go on Twitter to find out what's trending at that minute so that I know what's actually going on. So our children now are being raised by social media. So if something is happening on social media, if they hear, oh, there's been drugs are being sold on social media, or stabbings are happening, like they're starting from social media, it's going to be difficult for us to teach them the rights and the wrongs of society, or even to install any principles or any morals in them. It's literally the principles now and morals are being installed by social media, which is frightening, really. So it is frightening where we're kind of heading. It's really, really frightening, because I feel like we're kind of losing everything to gadgets, media, like literally, like now we can't even have a real meeting, we have to have a virtual one. But I feel like that's where the world is kind of leading us. So is that good? It's good in some sense, like for things like this, but is it good for children to have this and not have, because they don't even know normal anymore. My children think it's now normal to kind of talk to people on FaceTimes and video links, like, and then you think, where is this kind of leading us? And so obviously it starts this innocent, and then the next thing, you're talking to the wrong people on social media, you're talking to the wrong people online. Right. Just imagine 20 years from now what the world would be like.